That wasn't on my bingo card.
That wasn't on my bingo card.
That wasn't on my bingo card.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Scott Connell. Every year, our crazy weather in the bi-state, well, it gives us lots of ups and downs. Some things we expect, others, well, they surprise us. That's our bingo card. But what made the list this year? And what do you remember? Let's start in January. We knocked a few of them off that you would expect, and they were all cold related. Not only did we start January 17th below freezing and below zero at 7 below zero, but we only managed to get up to 3 degrees for a high that day. Our coldest day of the entire year from top to bottom. Now, this is during the statistical coldest period of the year anyway, so it's not particularly rare, but that was still a very cold start, and that was able to check 2 things immediately off the bingo card. It also checked a third, a high temperature below 30 degrees. This not only happened on that day, but 6 other times in January. It happened once in February, and since then, it hasn't. And it doesn't look like it will before the end of the year. That's due to all this warm weather.
A frozen fountain, frosty firefighters, a riverbank encased in ice. There were broken house pipes, even this fire truck sliding on ice that made national headlines. January felt to many like one for the record books. But were last month's temperatures colder than normal? Let's verify. Our sources, John Carney, a meteorologist at the National Weather Service in St. Louis, and daily National Weather Service climatological reports. Of the 31 days in January, 8 were colder than normal and 23 were warmer than normal.
Right there in the middle of the month when we had that real cold snap, on the 14th, we were 34 degrees below normal. Okay, so yeah, it feels awfully cold on those days, obviously. But because there were so many more days that were above normal, the month kind of averages out.
The average temperature for January 2024 was 31.9 degrees. That's just 0.2 degrees lower than the average January. We can verify our region's average temperature during January 2024 was very close to average, only 0.2 of a degree colder than normal. While it wasn't the coldest January on record, the snow made the month stand out. It ranks 3rd in the most days with measurable snowfall. I'm Ann Allred, 5 on your side.
February was a totally different story. While it can get very cold this month, there are usually some big swings from the start of the month to the finish. While there were some minor swings, the dominant factor from February was the heat. We started off with a 72-degree day on the first of the month, and then we had 2 80-plus degree days by the end of the month, including an 86-degree high on February 27th. Not only was that the warmest temperature we've ever had in February, the entire month ended up being the 2nd warmest February on record. That also led to some local anomalies regarding the vegetation. Trees started to bloom early. Some of the grass even grew a little bit, and many mornings stayed above freezing. And as a result, we saw some of our earlier allergy reports in recent memory. That covered 2 more spots on our bingo card, 80s in February and early tree bloom.
Well, March presents even larger swings for us historically, with the phrase in like a lamb, out like a lion being used at times, or vice versa. We started out the month with a trace of snow, graupel, and then it got a lot more interesting from there. The morning of March 14th, we had 5 small tornadoes develop in the bi-state between 7 and 8 a.m. Maximum wind speeds reached between 75 miles per hour to 85 miles per hour in Jersey, Macoupin, and St. Louis counties. By the afternoon, we saw another round of storms develop. While tornadoes were not the threat in the afternoon, very large hail was. Hail between 3 to 4 inches in diameter caused massive damage in O'Fallon, Missouri, North County, and Livingston, Illinois. We also had wind gusts over 70 miles per hour that caused widespread damage in the area. So March checked off snow, wind, and gusts over 70 miles per hour, jumbo hail, morning tornadoes, and an AM and PM severe weather risk. A busy month. We also tried to sneak back into drought, but there's much more on that later.
Beginning the month of April, our main focus was, of course, on the total solar eclipse. While not all of our viewing area was under the path of totality, you didn't have to go far to see over 4 minutes of daytime darkness. But the days up to it leading ahead weren't looking too promising. As dry as we had been, clouds remained a factor into the days leading up to it. With forecasts, we got very, very fortunate. There wasn't a cloud in the sky for the eclipse, and it was an incredible show that wowed viewers that came from far and wide to catch a glimpse of the celestial phenomenon. I even talked to somebody that came from Japan. The rest of the month, we dealt with pockets of severe weather. And, that happens in April. We had severe weather. We had tornadoes occurred in the area. In fact, we started the month with our first round of severe weather. As Scott and I tracked storms one night, late into the night, the National Weather Service suffered a radar data outage. Not only did the radar not show up like it should for them, didn't show up in our systems, and the National Weather Service in St. Louis wasn't even able to issue warnings. Kansas City office had to assist. That was definitely not on our bingo cards that night. To continue our busy start to the month, we had another round of severe weather just days later. Just like we always do, we alerted you when there was a tornado warning by breaking into regularly scheduled programming. One of those days, the Valero Texas Open. And you may not know anything about the Valero Texas Open or care, and most people don't. Sometimes you couldn't pick it out of a lineup, but guess what? I watch a lot of golf, so I understand what it is, and a lot of people are watching this one a little bit more than they were because Denny McCarthy got red hot on the back. He chased down Akshay Bhatia by making birdie on 8 of the last 9 holes. He was red hot. But Mother Nature doesn't care about golf as much as I do. And you know me, I wouldn't interrupt golf unless we had to. But we had to, and we interrupted the coverage just as the playoffs started. So a lot of people were messaging me about questions all the time. So all of a sudden, everybody starts to care about golf as much as I do, which I appreciate. But as a reminder, it doesn't matter if it's sunny where you are, if there's a tornado warning or there's severe weather, some other area in our entire coverage area, we're always going to cover it for you to keep you safe. I know. It's a bit easier for you to get your attention by streaming online in our 5+ app nowadays. We always take it seriously by finding the best way to get you that information during the storm. And I can laugh about it a little bit now about during that particular time, but I couldn't go anywhere for about a week without someone asking me about it. So there you go. We got through that, and you always remember the Valero Texas Open. Lots more happened in May, with 21 tornadoes in total occurring by the end of the month. We also had over 6 inches of rain this month, and that was above average. Could we finally get a surplus heading into the hotter months? It seemed likely, but one of the things that we didn't expect to see in Missouri or Illinois, the northern lights. Sure, oftentimes we get a message about some of these solar storms, and there's a possibility that you could see it away from city lights, very low on the horizon, and that's unimpressive. You don't have to, you have to view it through a long exposure lens on your camera or your phone. And I remember being really skeptical about it too, because I usually am with these things. I don't want to send you out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night, at midnight, trying to get a little glimpse, and you think it's going to look like Iceland outside, because most of the time, that's not the case. But if it's warranted, we definitely want to let you know about these cool celestial events, whether or not it's, an eclipse, obviously other things like that. So the key for us is this time, we were starting to see it in similar latitudes. After sunset in areas to our east, even in Europe. Vibrant colors. So there was some good optimism that we would be able to see at least a little bit of it here. Sure enough, once it got dark, I was able to go outside, even at my house, and see the pink colors and pillars without the lens. Now, this is truly remarkable because that just does not happen around here. And some of the photos everyone shared showed just how remarkable of an event this was going to be able to witness. Was it once in a lifetime? Perhaps. Oh, wait, no, we saw it again in October. Yeah, so twice an eclipse for us. And while maybe not quite as vibrant, it was still visible for most people in the city using their camera lens. Aurora, definitely not on my bingo card for 2024.
June brought the heat. The hottest day of the year was June 25th at 103 degrees. While we reached 100 a couple of times later that season, this was the hottest. But the heat also brought the cicadas. Yes, remember these things? They were everywhere. The 13 and 17-year cicadas started to reemerge by late May, but with the heat and the soil temperatures increasing in June, they were fully back. Decibel levels from the piercing sounds of cicadas reached nearly 100 dB. They were largely harmless and people even ate them. But June was their peak month, and we don't have to deal with this again for quite some time, but we will always have our annual cicadas.
Nice. It's awesome.
We're listening to the sweet sounds of cicadas around my house in the county.
Based on what I see here, they're not going to be that dense there, but you've got a pretty robust population.
Lucky me. To each their own, but for Professor Fowler-Finn, my house would be research paradise.
I study on how insects communicate with one another in order to coordinate reproduction.
Which is why she gets to use this awesome piece of equipment.
This is Vlad. And Vlad is an insect vacuum.
Vlad the inhaler. Bug inhaler, that is. Usually cicadas are slow enough Vlad isn't required.
So we've been studying how cicada sounds that people are hearing are actually affecting other animals like birds and other insects that sing.
But some people aren't hearing them at all, which is why I went to Professor Fowler-Finn.
So there's a few reasons why you might not hear them. They sing at a very specific time of day.
Usually between 3 and 5 p.m. Still not hearing them?
The second reason is they're just not as dense in the city, and that's because we don't have the woods to support them.
Have woods and still not hearing them?
The third reason is that you might hear the occasional one or two, but people don't recognize a single call necessarily.
And there's one more reason.
Or if there's soil disruption for construction, or maybe there's heavy pesticide use, you might have a lack of cicadas there as well.
If you aren't hearing any, it's not necessarily a bad thing.
I think it is a sign of urbanization and turnover of land use. So I think if you're concerned about that, then we need to work together to, preserve natural areas.
Tracy Henson, 5 on your side.
After a dry June, we needed some rain. We only had about an inch of rain in the month of June, and usually that's one of our wettest months due to the thunderstorms. Now, with that high sun angle and hotter temperatures, things got dry quickly. But tipping the scales immediately in July isn't quite what we wanted to get us out of the drought. Several heavy rain events pushed us over 8 inches by the end of the month, with some areas getting around 8 inches just from July 3rd into July 4th. We were no longer in a drought, and the month finished a little quieter and, of course, hot.
Oh, man, it's overwhelming as usual. Yeah.
Overwhelming as usual because this isn't the first time these neighbors have had to drop everything to clear out the creek.
It hasn't in a while. Years ago, it was a regular occurrence.
And something his daughter Josie has always had to help with. She was hoping to do normal 4th of July things.
Watch fireworks and eat a lot of food.
And what are you going to do instead?
Clear out the creek.
So where to start with a beaver dam of logs against your neighborhood bridge?
The top. Start chopping and cutting from the top down.
From there, it was all horsepower and manpower. The water had subsided by the time the residents were up, but you could see the evidence of where the water had been. The creek is about 30 feet from here. It had flown up over its banks, even making its way to the first row of this pasture fence, leaving debris behind.
I had no idea it rained that much. I am surprised, yes.
2019 was the last time these neighbors had to come together, but that time was worse.
Quite a few days because it was more backed up than this.
We worked pretty hard to clear out not just the congestion here, but everything upstream. And it lasted for a number of years. We were successful. So now we're just back in the loop. Trees grow, trees die, and here we are.
After 4 hours, there's still more work to be done. In Wildwood, Tracy Henson, 5 on your side.
While we had it periodically during September and October, it's something that we just had to deal with in more than just 1 month. Wildfire smoke. Some of it came from California, Oregon, and Washington, but other times it came from Canada. And while most of this stayed aloft, there were times where we could actually smell it at the surface. And as wildfires become more common, this seems like something we're always just going to have to deal with and check off the list every year.
Fall colors looked promising this year. Plenty of rain in September, no big temperature swings. We were looking forward to some nice fall colors. Finally, but not so fast. Insert flash drought. Less than an inch of rain the entire month settled us into a drought once again. So of course we flipped that script quickly, yet again. Heavy rain and flash flooding near Election Day produced bands of 8 to 10 inches of rainfall in some areas. Not only did that swell local creeks and streams, but all that fed into the Merrimack. Some of the rises rivaled that of the rain received from the Hurricane Ike, which was in 2008. The rest of the month proved to be on a milder side. While we had already seen our first frost in St. Louis, a freeze outside of the city, we really actually never hit 32 degrees. We became so far behind schedule that we were one day short of the latest freeze ever in St. Louis. So far this month, we have had a pretty uneventful month. Ups, downs, some nice snow got us on board with our earliest 3 inches in 6 years. I'm not really sure that sets us up for a white Christmas, but we'll see. One thing remains, a certainty at this point, a top 10 warm year. As it stands right now, we are in the second warmest year on record ever, only behind the year 2012. That year's average temperature was 61.2 degrees. Right now, our average temperature is 62.3 degrees. If we finish this month mild, it's conceivable we could make a run at the warmest year ever on record in St. Louis.
Now that our 2024 weather bingo card is full, did anything here surprise you? Or did you forget that all that happened in 1 year? Let us know if we forgot anything as we march toward, hopefully, a less eventful 2025, and we'll keep you posted between here and beyond.